Hello and welcome back to the Rusted Brush. Today I'm going to be working on some Lizardmen mercenaries for my Estalian army. I'll be showing you the conversions and how I painted them. This little group includes 5 skinks, a saurus, and 2 humans, an Estalian interpreter, and a priest, who are there to make sure this arrangement works. I don't want to get into the background too much, so I'm going to be saving that for another video for the future. Essentially, I was inspired by the Warhammer fantasy RPG book on Lustria. By the way, this book is a really good resource on Lustria and Lizardmen, even if you don't plan on playing the RPG and you're interested in that setting. Now let's talk about the models and the conversions. The goal with the conversions was balance. They still need to look unmistakably like Lizardmen, but with enough Estalian influence to show that they're being equipped, paid, and supplied by the expedition. This first skink here, I used the body from the Perry Miniatures War of the Roses Knights. They're a smaller scale than GW humans, so I think the proportions work better for the skinks. I did have to Dremel the lower half to make rooms for the legs, and this was the case for all the skinks' bodies. For all the skink bits, I'm using what I had left over from the Stegodon kit that I made to use the war wagon with. The arms are from the Wargames Atlantic Conquistador, and I made a rough color out of green stuff to add some Estalian flair to this guy. The next skink I decided on using the lower half of the skink priest, and then green stuff some sort of loose clothing on the legs. For the upper body, I used a pistolier, as I noticed they're slightly smaller than some of the other Empire torsos. For the gun and the arms, I used the Warlord Games Lance Neck kit. This is a smaller scale, and I think it works well for the skinks. And lastly, I added a sword and a scabbard from the old Empire State Troops. This skink I decided on using a Perry miniature Agincourt Knight to mix things up a bit. I mostly left this with more skink parts than the others, and then green stuffed some short sleeves and a bit of chainmail around the neck to fill in a gap. This skink I used the Perry miniature War of the Roses Knights again. This time I used the arms from this kit too. I did shorten the arms a bit as they were way too long, and I green stuffed the gaps a little too. I gave him an axe, and this came from the Empire Greatsword kit. And my personal favorite skink I made is this one. Again, the same body and arms from Perry Miniatures, and this time I green stuffed a small cape. I also gave him a helmet. I thought this helmet looked like it could work for a skink, and then I added the top fin to the helmet. This comes from the Perry Miniature Mounted Men at War kit. Now for the humans, the priest I wanted to look like he's very much influenced by the Lizardmen. The torso comes from the Greatsword kit, and the legs are from the War Altar kit. The head is another Perry Miniature helmet. All the Lizardmen bits that I added to him come from the Stegodon kit. His weapon is the Warrior Priest Hammer and Arm, replaced with a Temple Guard club at the end. His other arm is from the Archer kit, and I thought this made him look like he's chanting something. The Interpreter is there to handle communication more than anything else, so I wanted him to look less like a warrior. His body and legs come from the Hellstorm Rocket Battery kit. The arms are from the Luminarch of Hysh. The head is from the Great Swords. The gun on his back is an old Empire handgun with the hands filed off of them and with a green stuff sling added to it. And the book on his back is from the Flagellant kit. And now finally the saurus. This was the most striking and personal favorite conversion of mine. To start, the base model was a Temple Guard. I kept the bone helmet on him, but I was debating if I wanted to file it and make it look like a metal helmet, but I decided against it. Now for the armor itself, this was a lot more work. I used the arms and breastplate from the Cities of Sigmar command kit. I had to shave down most of the Temple Guard torso for this to fit. I then green stuffed a bunch of chainmail to any of the exposed bits of the torso. For the shoulders, I used an Empire State shield on one side and a skeleton breastplate on the other, and I thought this added a lot of weight to him. On his back, I gave him a bag from the Cities of Sigmar martial horse. I also added an Empire falchion, then I green stuffed some bits of cloth and some jeweler's chain, and finally for his weapon, I used a greatsword from the Greatsword kit, instead of using the hammerhead from the City of Sigmar kit. Now it's time to paint. To start, all the models were primed with black, then they got a zenithal highlight of right bone. The first thing I worked on was the metal. This is because most of the models have majority of metal on them. I first used AK Natural Steel as my starting color. Some bits I then used Vallejo True Metallic Sterling on. Others I used Balthazar Gold, Vallejo Aged Metal, and Arcane Gold. These were to make the Lizardmen trinkets stand out more, and to make some of the metal areas more unique and interesting. I then started painting some of the leather and cloth with Vallejo Burnt Red mixed with Army Painter Burnished Red. Other bits of cloth I used AK Mud Brown mixed with Army Painter Hardened Leather. I also used this on the teeth and hooves of the Lizardmen. Some of the sleeves and the beard I used Basilicanum Grey for. And other bits of cloth and shield I used Army Painter Absolution Grain for. All the bones I used Pallid Bone on them. I wanted more colors on these models, so I wanted to paint yellow, and as an undercoat, I used AK Orange Brown for this. Then I use a wash of Nazdrag Yellow on these bits. Now I wanted to start highlighting and painting over these colorful areas. Starting with the greens, I used AK Deep Green. The yellows were highlighted with Averland Sunset, and then I highlighted them afterwards with Flashgitz Yellow. The cloth that I painted grey were highlighted with Vallejo Cold White. After this, the models were all given a wash of Nuln Oil. And once that dried, I started going back to all the metals. Most of the weapons and armor were highlighted with Vallejo Sterling Silver. The golds were highlighted with Arcane Gold or Aged Metal, both the base and light versions of these paints. Some bits like the weapon edges or armor I decided to highlight further with Vallejo Sterling Silver Light. I then highlighted the browns with AK Mud Brown, then a brighter highlight of AK Mud Brown mixed with Typhon Ash. For the reddish browns, I highlighted these with Vallejo Burnt Red. The greens were highlighted with AK Deep Green, the yellows with Flashgit Yellow, and the whites with Vallejo Cold White. And with that, I moved on to the skin. For this, I used Army Painter Fire Giant Orange mixed with Wild Rider Red as the base coat. Then I painted over this with Wild Rider Red, highlighted that with Troll Slayer Orange, and then a final highlight of Fire Dragon Bright. For the eyes, I wanted them to just be plain black, and I really like how this came out. For this, I'm just using Abaddon Black. I also decided to add some freehand Lizardmen writing on some of the bits of the models. For the Saurus skin, I decided on Pterodon Turquoise to start. Then I painted over this with a mix of Pterodon Turquoise and Vallejo Light Turquoise. Then I gave this a final highlight of just light turquoise. And finally I painted the teeth with Vallejo Cold White and based it like the rest of my army. So here they are after painting. I was really happy with how these models turned out. I wanted them to read as a group of mercenaries, something that could plausibly show up anywhere in the old world, not just in the jungle. The skinks being armored helped sell that idea. They still look quick and agile, but the extra protection makes them feel like experienced fighters who've learned to adapt different battlefields. The Saurus has a real sense of weight and authority, and the armor and weapon choice makes them feel like the centerpiece of the group. The Interpreter and Priest quietly tie everything together. They explain why this group works, but they don't overshadow the mercenaries themselves. On the table, they feel like a small, fun addition to the army. I'm going to be using the Saurus as a Dwarf Slayer, the Priest as the Priest of Ulrich, and the Skinks can really go into any units. If you got any other ideas for units, or allies, or strange additions to these Estalians, feel free to comment them down below. I'm always looking for excuses to build something weird. My next idea is a Worldter most likely converted from a Carnosaur. As always, thanks for watching, remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.